Today's episode is sponsored by Some Edibles CBD infused products. That's SUM Edibles and can be found at
someedibles.com.
They have a variety of yummy treats including
vegan organic gummies,
brown buttered chocolate chip cookies,
and marshmallow cereal bars, just to name a few.
For fans of the podcast, you can use the promo code WIFE, that's WIFE, to receive 10% off your order.
Again, promo code WIFE for 10% off your order.
So, head to someedibles.com today. Hi, welcome to Drunken Housewife Reviews. I'm Sarah, the Drunken Housewife.
And I'm the host and her husband, Ian Kennedy, and I try to keep her in line.
Which is a very hard thing to do.
Good luck to me.
Today we are interviewing Marc Hoover, who does the podcast Catch My Killer, which is an awesome podcast, sorry. You are also an Army vet. You were a social worker for a decade?
Yeah, about a decade, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. You are also the author of a book called Just Bite Me, a guide to zombies, vampires, werewolves, and other walking nightmares, which is available on Kindle. I've got to get me a copy because I love all things zombie, werewolf, vampire. This sounds right up my alley.
I don't know how you missed that.
I don't know how I missed it either because yeah, it's right up my alley. So your podcast I'm absolutely loving because you concentrate on cold cases, basically the cases that have kind of fallen off the radar. That I mean, I've not heard of any of them, and I am a true crime junkie, for lack of a better word. So how did you really kind of get into this? What spurred you into doing this podcast?
For the past 6 years, I've written a column for the Claremont Sun. It's a 200-year-old newspaper in Ohio. And I started in 2015, so I guess this will be my 7th year doing it. But I write about unsolved homicides and sometimes paranormal stories and just crime stories, not just about Ohio, but just outside of Ohio too. But I try to write a lot about Ohio. But I have also had some experiences with some people that have been murdered. I think it all started when I was probably about 13, when one of my relatives was murdered by her boyfriend. My cousin was murdered by her boyfriend.
Wow.
He was abusive, and I guess she was trying to leave him. So he shot her to death, and then he killed himself. So yeah, that. And I had another experience back in 1989 where I worked at a Shoney's restaurant. I don't know if you've ever heard of Shoney's.
We have, yes. Yeah, we've heard of Shoney's.
Big chain down south.
Yeah.
But I worked at one in Indianapolis, and I had just left. I had just quit to go back to school. But probably 9 days after I had quit, one of the workers there that I worked with, named Eric Holmes, he worked on the salad bar. He had robbed the store. He had come back one night and robbed the store, and he ended up murdering two of the managers.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
So
I knew all three of them. So I knew Eric, and I knew the two managers that he killed. And it's kind of something that's stuck with me for a long time. And as a matter of fact, it's kind of interesting because the son of one of the victims never knew his mom. And he had reached out to me probably last year, and he's like, "You knew my mom?" I'm like, "Yeah, I knew your mom. I worked with your mom." He's like, "Yeah, I was a baby when she died." And I was like, "Yeah." And I remembered his name too, because she talked to me about him. Mm-hmm. So he was like, "What, can you tell me about my mom?" So I think that's something that's really unusual to have somebody who never had the chance of meeting his mom reach out to me and say, "You were somebody that knew my mother before she died.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me what kind of a person she was? Can you tell me about her?" And I did. I did. So he's reached out to a lot of people that knew his mom. because he never got to know her because she
Yeah.
was murdered when he was a baby. So the guy that did it is on death row in Indiana, and his name, like I said, his name is Eric Holmes. He's been on death row in Terre Haute, Indiana since 1994. Crazy.
Wow.
I mean, what's that? Almost 30 years.
Yeah.
I don't know why they won't execute him, but he's been sitting there.
I know. You think after
so-
all this time, a date would have been set. I mean, I know that there's like they're allowed so many appeals and you know, all of that, but after 30 years, you're like, has he not run out of
exactly
appeals and stuff? Why aren't we setting a
Right.
date? Yeah.
Why is he still alive?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's just insane.
And her son, he wonders the same thing. He's like, well, I don't even know why the guy's still alive. But so I'm probably one of the very few people that can actually say I know somebody personally that's sitting on death row. None of my friends can say that.
Yeah, I know.
It's not right.
Yeah.
Nobody knows
It's a
anybody
real
on
thing,
death
yeah.
row. So a combination of my column and my actual experiences, and then my experiences as a social service worker, kind of led me to the podcast. Because in social services, you see so many bad things.
Yeah. I know. I've had a few friends who have done social work. And I know nightmare situations. I know one was just, like so frustrated because she's like, she wanted to get the kids into foster care, but no, the house does have power, even though it's an extension cord run to their neighbor's house. It's like,
wow.
Yeah.
Didn't know that one.
Yeah. It's like, you hear stories like that all the time.
It's pretty bad. Well, for instance, like in my county, like I work for Hamilton County, Ohio, which is Cincinnati.
Gotcha.
And do you realize that if a house is completely infested with roaches, I mean, that's not enough to take a kid out. You can't say, well, this kid's house has just got roaches everywhere, so, but does he got food? Yeah, he's got food. Does he got heat? Yeah, he's got heat. Does his parents abuse him? Well, no, but just because he's got roaches all over the house, that's not enough to take him out.
Yeah.
So.
And I know we see it from the other side. Our daughter is physically handicapped and autistic. So she has, now she's an adult. She has a social worker that comes in. I know I'm paranoid. It's like, oh my God, there's dishes in the sink. I need to wash dishes.
Right.
And just to hear some of the horror stories of that house is okay, but I'm paranoid because I have dishes in the sink and I need to vacuum. It's just, it boggles my mind, the levels that they're like, well, no, it's still okay. It's like, no, it's not, but I don't make the laws. I don't make the rules, but like I said, in my mind, it's just, it's bizarre. Like I said, I am a major true crime nut. I think my start basically came in high school. There was a murder trial in Boone County and here in Indiana. When my mom worked in the court system, that this woman was trying to plead insanity. And my dad taught psychology at the time. And he was like, okay, here's everything she's saying. And basically presented it to his classes. He's like, would you say she's insane? And all of his classes, every single one of them were like, no, because she's ticking off every single box. And come to find out she was a librarian, had done a lot of research into whatever psychosis she was claiming and ticked off and they're like, no, everybody, they don't tick off every single box. You have a majority of these symptoms, but you don't have all of them. But I remember in high school rushing to the courthouse to hear the last parts of the testimony, and the sheriff's deputy in charge of the evidence would actually let us look at the evidence, which was insane now to think that he was letting, 14,
Students
15, 16 year olds look at, here's her severed head. No, it was partially decapitated because an inch of skin was still holding it on. So that's partial. Here's the murder weapon, here's all these crime scene it's just insane for me to think today. I know that would not happen. I know,
Right.
But it kind of started spurring that. What is it in somebody who kills somebody? What is it in their head that's different than what's in my head? Like Jeffrey Dahmer was lonely, so he killed people. I'd join a book club. That would be my, and so that's kind of, but my huge question for you is, it seems like today, maybe like always, but it's always been about the killer. And almost, do you feel almost like they're glorified a little in the press? I mean, not, it's like, let's talk about all the horrible things he did. Oh, here's his victims, but let's talk about all the horrible things this guy did, and everything they found, which it's fascinating, but at the same time, I mean, do you really feel like they're starting to spend like way too much time talking about
They do.
the killer and not the victims?
Well, for example, look at the names they give them: the Night Stalker,
the
Green River Killer,
the
sadist, the sadistic butcher of Kingsbury or whatever. They give them these cool names. Why not give them the real name? The bedwetter who failed high school, dropout killer. The kid that got bullied and beaten up all the time because he wore glasses, because he was lonely killer. How about names like that? But they give them these cool names. And it's right. You're right. I mean, I've watched documentaries on all of them. Gary Ridgway, Ted Bundy. I mean, I'm so sick of seeing the Ted Bundy ones, everybody has an angle on Ted Bundy. I remember back in 1989 when they executed him. I was going to college, and I remember watching Good Morning America, because that was what everybody did back in the day in the 80s. I was watching Good Morning America, and they did like the whole episode about Ted Bundy's execution. And they were showing the prison and all the people standing outside. So I remember the day when they executed him. And I can remember his reign of terror when he was out running around killing people. But I didn't think anything of it. I was just like, glad they caught him. That he's dead. 1989 or whatever, when they executed him for killing that girl in Florida, that kid. I was like, good, he's dead. I really didn't give it another thought. But now it's like the story of Ted Bundy. They're making all these movies. They're making all these documentaries. I didn't care. He was dead, and that was it for me. I never thought a thing of him again. But, he's really popular. And if you look at true crime, it's people. If you show any kind of a documentary about him, people want to see him. The guy that was on what was the guy that get on the game show? Rodney Alcala. The dating game killer. I mean, there all kinds of stuff about him. And Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker, all kinds of stuff about him. And women sent Richard Ramirez marriage letters. They wanted to marry. I
don't get that. I cannot, because it's like the last thing I'm going to find sexy is a guy who killed a bunch of women, raped and killed a bunch of women. That to me is just, I mean, okay, was he a decent looking guy? Sure. But attractiveness goes way down when you find out he's raped and murdered all these. The groupies, all of that. I
don't get it either.
How horrible is your life that you fallen madly in love with the serial killer? What is wrong? Again, what is different up here with you that's, not ticking in my brain? Because,
I coming from a man's point of view, with women, this might not even fit, I don't know. But I think that there's something with the women's psyche of wanting the bad boy.
Yeah.
And
That's
and
pretty
he is-
bad, too.
and he's-
Yeah, I was gonna say
well,
that's the
he's-
ultimate bad boy.
Exactly. That's the ultimate bad boy. So maybe
Yeah.
that has something to do with it. I don't know.
I don't know. Cause I mean, like Charles Manson, didn't he get married?
Yeah, I
But
think
he-
so.
yeah.
Yeah.
He's married to a
Some
couple
young
women,
young
yeah.
girl.
Yeah, some young girl. And I'm like,
Yeah. So I just think that as a part of it.
yeah, it's like,
was
I'm sorry,
that,
I
you know,
love you, but if I found out that you were a serial killer, divorce. I mean, just
yeah. But
right
I
off.
just think that's something that has to do with it, which is just kind of a weird, like complicated psychology of I don't want to just say women, because I'm sure there's some men who liked him too.
I
Yeah,
mean,
probably.
there are female killers
But you-
in
but you
prison
see what
that
I'm
I'm
saying.
sure have as many groupies
Well,
as
what's her name?
yeah.
The one. What's her name? Jodi
Arias, Jodi Arias.
I read that she gets tons of letters from men saying they love her and they want to marry her, and they put money on her books. I've heard that she has a lot of commissary money, so she has plenty of junk food and all these crazy men that are in love with her give her money and send her
Yeah.
gifts.
That's
It's
just-
just,
She's got men groupies.
yeah. So I mean, it crosses the gender, it just,
Yeah.
but again, that's one of those things. What is it here? There's
know.
got to be something wrong up here that's your answer, that's your go-to, that, it's just insane for me.
Right, it is.
Yeah, I just,
Well, what about that the episode that he did for ID?
with the,
Yeah.
wasn't it, the
Yeah.
guy he died of pneumonia?
Right.
And
Right.
yeah, I'm watching that and I'm like, how did he self-inflict these injuries? How
Right.
did
Brandon
he-
Embry. Mhm.
Yeah. And I'm like, watching the whole thing, we were both just like,
Mhm.
you've got to be kidding me. You've got to be kidding me.
I've seen the pictures. His mom shared the pictures with me. They're on Facebook on the page. His whole body is just a big bruise. And one of the nurses that was treating Brandon before Brandon died told her somebody killed him. He looks like he's been hit by a truck, or a car.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In a car wreck is what he looks like. Somebody did this to him. And the nurse told the mom, do not let them tell you anything else other than he was murdered. Somebody did this to him.
Now,
Yeah.
And I'm trying to remember, did they, because I know at first his death certificate said he died from pneumonia. Did it get changed? Did they?
No, I don't
still
believe
says
so.
pneumonia.
Pneumonia, yeah, they won't call it a homicide.
Yeah, because
But
I know.
see, the problem is they didn't do an investigation. Like the mom sent me pictures. I've seen the pictures. There's pictures of matted hair and blood sticking to the wall. The hair was black. Well, Brandon doesn't have black hair.
So, he was
So
a
there's black
blood,
hair
wasn't
and
he?
blood matted to the wall. And also, I think the same day that he died, a neighbor saw Brandon in the front yard arguing with a man. Him and a man were standing outside arguing. They were yelling at each other over something.
Wow.
And then Brandon was dead. Well, from what I understand, the neighbor said the police never spoke to him. They haven't
Wow.
taken that into consideration. And then they find the black hair. He's seen arguing with a man with dark hair. And then there's blood and dark hair sticking to Brandon's wall, like Brandon fought back against him.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, to me, that's 1 + 1 = could be the killer.
Yeah.
But I think the mom said something about one of the officers said, oh, well, people on meth can hurt themselves like
Right.
that. So it sounds like the police he was a drug
they
user. We're just going to write this off. There's no reason
did.
to do this, which I'm sorry. I don't care what your lifestyle was, but he wasn't. Let's
he
make
wasn't.
that clear. He was not.
Right. He was not
drug
on drugs.
user.
When they did
Yeah.
the talks, nothing.
It was clear. So
Yeah, nothing. No drugs.
yeah, to me, that means, the police need to get out of that meth mindset. But even if he was, he still deserves an investigation. He still deserves, somebody looking into this. And that's just got to be so frustrating for his family, for any family that finds himself in this situation where the police are just like, we're done, you know.
Right. That's what they did, though.
This is what we're writing it off as. It's done, you know, have a nice life. And that just, to me, just sounds just,
yeah.
You just want to shake people.
I know we had,
we had a case here where thankfully it got investigated. A woman drowned in a pond here. Well, she had the crap beaten out of her before she ended up in the water.
That was here in Lebanon.
That was here in Lebanon.
Lebanon, yeah.
And the guy that beat her up, his defense was, well, she didn't die from the injuries, she drowned. And they were able to prove, because of the extent of her injuries, once she hit the water, she was in no shape to save herself. Therefore, she didn't get in the water herself. You rolled her into the water, you know. Yes. And I am thankful to this day that they, you know, didn't write it. Well, she drowned, you know.
Right. They could have just.
They could have been like, oh, well, she, you know, yeah, she suffered all these injuries, but then she fell in the water and drowned. No, she was pushed into the water, and it, you know, so I'm thankful that it wasn't just written off as, you know.
Right.
But yeah, I know we have at least one unsolved mystery that's in my head here in Lebanon. It was the Holiday Inn murder. I don't know if you've heard about that.
No, you guys are in Indiana, right?
Yeah, we're in Indiana.
I'm from Indianapolis.
Yeah. Oh, this was back,
but I'm not familiar with this one.
Yeah, this was
Holiday Inn.
I have to look it up, like late 80s, early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
It had to be early 90s because I was old enough to go to the bar at the Holiday Inn and drink. And we were not allowed to go to the bar and drink after this happened.
Right.
Yeah, it's still unsolved. And one of the night clerks was beaten to death with one of the golf clubs. They had a little putt, and you could get golf clubs from the desk.
I've not heard of this one.
Yeah, she was beaten to death, and it's still unsolved. So I know, and I know here in town, everybody's like, oh, we all know so-and-so did it, but we can't prove it. Yeah. And I mean, how many cases have you run into where it's like, everybody knows this person did it, we just don't have the evidence to prove it? Have you run into
that's pretty much all
of them?
Because I was watching a show a couple of days ago and they had a detective on there, and he said that he was talking about that. He said in most cases, the police know exactly who committed the crime, but the problem is they just don't have the evidence.
Yeah.
And people have a misconception that, well, if they know, they should just go. No, you can't arrest them. You can't. You have to have the proof because they only get one shot in court. And if you drag him into court and you don't have any evidence and he gets exonerated, you can never try him again.
Yeah.
So he just got away with murder.
Yeah, exactly.
So, and that I think that's the case in a lot of them, because you probably know that what is the percentage? 85 or 90% of all homicides are committed by someone that the person knew.
Yeah.
Random strangers committing homicides, just breaking in and killing people. It does happen, but not that often. Usually it's somebody that they knew. And I think like a lot of times when a woman gets killed, I'm going to go on a limb and I'm going to say it's probably 95% of the time, it was probably a husband, a boyfriend, an ex-boyfriend, some kind of a man that was in her life is the one that did it.
Well, but I'm trying to not give away too much because I don't want people in Lebanon coming back on me going, no. But in this particular case, they're thinking it was a female associated, that it was a love, I mean, that happens. A lot of people are like, oh, women don't really kill. Killer women are, I'm like, no, I know how mad I get sometimes. I've never got killing crazy, but women are fully capable.
Well, I think women are more ruthless. Women are ruthless. Women use poison. They use psychological things. They use poison. They get somebody to do it. Man, they just shoot the person and be done with it. So they commit crimes totally differently. And it seems like I think a lot of times when a woman does it, it's either for financial gain or just because she just wants to get rid of the guy. Maybe she just hates her husband. She wants his insurance money, financial gain. How many times have you seen where women have their husbands killed because they wanted an insurance policy?
Oh,
Yeah. Do you think, because I know this topic has come up, I know, so my mom worked in the court system for years, and I have people that I went to school with, are police officers now. Shows like CSI, Criminal Minds, do you think it's teaching the criminal community, for lack of a better word, how to get away with it? Or do you think the science is just ahead enough, because it's like, how many years ago we didn't know fingerprints were, an identifier, and now, fingerprints and DNA are like the gods of,
Right.
But so you don't think that those shows are?
Not really. I think ignorant people see those shows and think they can get away with it because what they see. Now that's what they think, but you have to realize that, I mean, when people commit murders, you're an amateur. You're an amateur killer. You maybe you killed one person in your whole life. You murdered somebody. These cops, their job is to catch killers. It's all they do. It's like your job, like if you're working, whether you're working at McDonald's or whether you're working construction.
Yeah.
You know your job, and that's all you do, and it's all you know. And that's what these cops, it's all they know is to catch these guys. So they're already on top of it. They know a lot of this stuff because they probably watch those same TV shows too, and there a lot of them are pretty smart people. So, you're going to match wits against some guy that's his profession and he's good at it. You're not going to come out on top. No. And I think it's almost impossible to commit the perfect murder because you're human. You're going to leave something behind. You're going to leave blood. Like, in a lot of cases, when the homicide is committed with a knife, they always find the killer's blood because, well, if you've handled a knife and you're cutting something and you're stabbing somebody and they're bleeding, well, that's going to get slippery on your hand and your hand's going to slip and they always end up cutting themselves. So if somebody gets stabbed 50 times, most likely the person that did the stabbing stabbed himself too on accident.
Yeah.
You're going to leave hair behind. They leave. I mean, you can hear cases about these guys leaving their wallets behind, leaving their eyeglasses behind.
Contact lens falls out.
Yeah. I mean, you heard about cases where people have robbed banks and they wrote with the letter, they wrote it on the back of a utility bill. They used the letter on a utility bill with their information on it. Oh my God. And that's the other thing is, I think most criminals are stupid. Yeah. They're not like, you watch these movies and you watch these guys, these intricate crimes. It's not like that. Most people that commit these murders get caught. I mean, I know there's thousands of unsolved cases, but if you put those against the ones that they actually solve, it's a smaller percentage.
Yeah, I agree.
And luck has a lot to do with it, that these guys don't get caught. And a lot of them get caught 20, 30 years down the road. A lot of the ones that are getting solved now are from the past because technology's catching up to the evidence. They still have the evidence. They just got to get around to testing it, sitting backlog somewhere. You're always hearing about it.
Kudos to whoever thought we need to hang on to this stuff. I know we don't have the technology to test the blood or the hair or whatever, but someday, one of the things I say is somebody was a Star Trek fan because they knew technology was coming. They knew that somebody somewhere was, it's like they knew somebody somewhere was working on how to take this one drop of blood and figure out, the DNA profile and the whole nine. And then match it, so like back in the 70s, whoever thought we need to hang on to this stuff, kudos to them. I'm sure that a lot of the cold cases that have been solved recently because somebody was smart enough to hang on to that stuff, I'm sure the families are just thankful that there was still that stuff to hang on to.
Right.
But on the other side, it's got to be frustrating for the officers that take on the cold cases, that they're like, okay, we need to look at the evidence. And somebody brings them this little file folder and it's like, here you go. And they're like,
yeah,
where's
there's
the clothing? There's
2 or 3 pieces of paper and that's it.
Yeah. Here's a photo of the dead body. And here's 2 or 3 pieces of paper and stuff that, and that's just got, I'm wondering how many cold case detectives are like, this is why I drink, because, y'all did this to me. And I wonder like how that's influencing cold cases, like from just like even 2-3 years ago. Cause it seems like if you haven't solved a murder within like 6 months, it's cold or something like that.
It just depends on the agency.
Yeah. Because I know like a city like Indianapolis, you've got your Monday homicide, your Tuesday homicide, your Wednesday homicide, and so stuff gets kind of pushed back because it's like, oh, well, we don't really have a lot on this one, but look at all the evidence we've got on this one. We know we can solve it. Let's concentrate on that. And then Mondays kind of gets pushed back to,
Right.
But it's really people like you, the families, that really push and push and push for news agencies for police to investigate. But how often have you, run into a case where it's like the family's like, well, they haven't solved it, and you're like, no, come on, let's talk about it. Have you ever had a family that you've contacted that you were like, just please let me help you, and they're like, nah. You've run into that?
Yeah, I have. I actually, there's a documentary being made about one of the ones that I had done, and I talked to the dad. I interviewed the dad, and the dad was like, well, if it gets, his 17-year-old daughter was murdered, and he was like, well, if it gets solved, it gets solved. I just kind of let the police do their thing. If it doesn't get solved, well, that's okay with me. I'll live with it. I'm like, wow, I've never heard that's what an attitude to have.
Yeah.
This is your daughter. I'm like, dude, I would never have that attitude, and you're not out, and he wasn't out doing he's not on TV. He's not doing any publicity. And the guy was a college professor. And
interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he's just not.
You think that would be the first person to be like, every Monday at 10 a.m. I'm calling,
Right. And this guy, he doesn't do interviews. He doesn't nothing. So some people just, I don't know. I don't want to say they don't care. They just move on. I'm like, well, this was your 17-year-old daughter that was murdered. You don't care? Well, I care. It doesn't matter if it gets solved or not. I'm okay either way.
Wow.
So yeah. I've heard that. And I've heard some people, they want to talk about the case, but then they back out. They go, well, I don't really want to. I don't feel comfortable talking about it. Or, the police tell me I shouldn't talk about it. And I'm like, really? It's been unsolved for 2 or 3, 4 years. The police are telling you not to talk about it. That's bull. Talk about it.
Yeah.
Because I know,
talking about it gets people knowing about it.
Because
that's what you want.
We just listened to an episode of yours where one of the agencies involved was like, no, we don't want to share any information with, you talked to I think it was Pruitt. I can't remember. Mary something or other.
Yeah.
Where one of the where I think it was like the FBI or somebody was like, no, we're not sharing any information with you. where, because they were all lined up to be on a show.
Right. Yeah, I've had a couple of them like that to be on Cold Justice.
Yeah.
With Kelly Sigler, the prosecutor.
Yeah.
Yeah. So a few of the people I've done stories with, she's agreed to come out and do their story and try to help law enforcement solve the murder. But her condition is she will only take cases where law enforcement will help her, will work with her. And
it's understandable, but still.
Several of them have said no. And then the families get upset. It's like, are you kidding me? This case has been cold for 20 or 30 years, and you refuse to take any outside help. Or they, like the FBI. The FBI won't come in unless you invite them in.
Yeah.
Some of these agents, they won't talk to Nancy Grace. They won't talk to the FBI. They won't talk to Cold Justice. They won't talk to any of these agencies. They refuse to take help from anybody. And it's like, you've been sitting on a case for 20 or 30 years. You haven't solved it. You refuse to take any help. It's boring. And I think that there should be a law that says that an agency should only be allowed to have a case for so many years. If it's not solved, and other agencies should be allowed to step in without their permission and just start working them if they want.
I
think a lot of it is
that's reasonable.
They don't want to be embarrassed, because what happens if you've been sitting on this case for 30 years and all of a sudden the FBI or Kelly Sigler comes in on a TV show and she solves it in a month, or the FBI comes in and they solve it in a month.
Yeah.
You've been sitting on it for 30 years unsolved. The FBI solves it in 30 days. That makes you look bad, makes you look like you're incompetent, which you already probably are incompetent, but nobody wants to feel that. And I think with a lot of these cops, it's a pride and ego. They don't want somebody else coming into their backyard and solving their cases. So they'd rather let it sit forever unsolved than take help out of pride.
Yeah, and that's ridiculous. I mean,
pride and ego just needs to be
I think there needs to be a rule that if the family comes to you and says, hey, we want you to, it's been sitting here for 20 years. We want to be we want to be featured on the show. This show wants to do an episode. You have to I think there should be something where if the family comes to you and says, hey, this is what's happening, then
especially if you present new evidence.
Yeah. I mean, because I know, like, if I sign something at the doctor's office saying share my medical information with so-and-so, then they have to share information with so-and-so. There should be something where it's like, I will sign whatever you want me to sign, but you have to turn over all of your evidence to the FBI, or you have to work with this TV show. Because I don't know about other people, but I would so be on like a publicity rant after that, where I would be on every social media, everything. We wanted to be on this show. We wanted to try to solve this case, but the local police department refused. You know.
Yeah, and they don't
want to. That's who I am. I would do that.
Because I've reached out. I mean, I kind of stopped reaching out to cops. I mean, some of my episodes I have cops on there, but I kind of stopped reaching out to them because I've come to find out that most of them will not talk to me. Most of them don't want me to help. And you've got these agencies, and they don't put anything on Facebook. They don't use Facebook. They don't use Instagram. They don't use TikTok. They don't use any of it. And I was talking to this one mother, and she said she was so frustrated because she was talking to one of the police officers in the case. And she says, would you put my daughter's or my child's case on your Facebook page? Will you talk to the press? Will you don't do any of this? No, we're not going to do that. We're not going to talk to the media about the case. We're not going to put it on Facebook. We're not going to put it on Instagram.
Wow.
We're not going to do any of that. We just don't do that stuff. And, you have some cops that are just not open to that. But then I have talked to some cops that will even listen to psychics. They'll listen to anybody that wants to talk, anybody that wants to help, any TV show that wants to help, anybody that wants to help, they will take the help. So you have those, and then you have some on the others that are stubborn and don't want nothing. No, just leave us alone. We'll figure it out someday, maybe.
Yeah. It's like, how are you going to figure it out if you're not talking to new people? If you're not you know, because there could be somebody in California that moved right after this happened,
But
that
something.
it's out of their head, you know, that they've kind of forgotten about it, but then they see that episode, they're like, wait a minute, you know, brain starts turning, they're like, I remember so and so, you know, something hit.
And that happens.
Yeah.
That happens all the time, where cases get solved because somebody shared it or they saw it on TV, they saw it on the news, and they go, wait a minute, I used to live there.
Yeah.
I lived in that town when that happened, and I knew one of these dudes, and I remember that dude telling me that he had killed somebody, and I never thought anything. I thought he was kidding.
Yeah.
So then they come back to the police 10 years later and say, I saw this on the news, and I didn't think it was anything, but now it is something.
Yeah.
As a matter of fact, I was watching a case on one of the shows a couple days ago where the same thing, where somebody had told somebody that they had killed this person, and the person didn't think anything of it until later on they saw a newspaper story saying that person was murdered, and they had no idea, because when the person told them, they thought, he's just talking crap. He didn't mean nothing. But then years later, when he didn't know that person was killed.
Yeah.
So when he realized it, but he saw it in a newspaper, he saw it on TV, saw it on social media. Then he contacted police and said, hey, I know this story. This dude told me he did this. Yeah. And they solved cases.
Because I mean, how many times, I don't know how many times a day people, you know, I am going to kill that person. I am so mad at them. I'm going to kill them. Yeah. And you're just like, yeah, whatever. And then, you know, you
probably
move on
said it
with
yourself.
your life. Yeah. You move on with your life. And then, you know, a couple of years later, you're like,
you don't think nothing of it.
Yeah. Or, you know, the person is like a pathological liar. I mean, nothing comes out of their mouth is true, but they tell you, oh yeah, I killed Joe Smith last year. And you're like, yeah, whatever. But then the more then you see a show like that, or you see it in the media and you're like, oh God, he really did kill Joe Smith. Yeah. I should probably go, you know, or people are scared. Yeah. Or people are scared, you know, and it takes years for them to be like, I have got to do the right thing. I have got, you know, and it comes out in the public and they're like, I can't sit on this anymore, you know? So yeah, I just don't understand agencies that are like, nope, we're not going to use social media is king these days.
Because it's instant. It's instant.
And I just don't understand that. So many people will share Facebook stories or tweets or, you know, something like that and it's like, I'm sorry, but if we can share cute cat videos, we can share a video of a police officer saying, look, so-and-so was murdered in, you know, 1993. We haven't been able to solve it. Here's what we know. If you know anything else, you know, like I said, we'll share cute cat videos. We'll share that too. I just don't understand. Use all your resources. I'd go door to door, you know, knocking on doors going, hey, 10 years ago in this neighborhood, you know, were you here 10 years ago? Do you know anything?
Right.
Yeah, it's insane to me. It is insane to me.
I think we're
do we need to wind it up? Yeah, because I could seriously,
Right.
I could seriously talk to you forever on this.
Bonus episodes about that.
I could
at all.
Feel free to reach out to us if you
exactly
need to do an interview about a specific case that maybe happened in Indiana.
Sure.
We'd be more than happy. Like I said, I could seriously sit down with you with a few beverages and talk about this.
Right. A lot of people can. Yes.
Yeah. All day. All day. So
okay, well, let's go ahead and tell us the name of your podcast again for the people at home, if you would, sir.
Yeah, if you want to take a listen, it's Catch My Killer. Just go to catchmykiller.com and you can find links to Apple or wherever you listen to podcasts. Take a listen. You might be able to help solve a case. You never know.
Definitely. And
that sounds great.
They can reach out to you or whatever news agents or police agency that you
I always put the
specify.
agency they can contact in the story notes. So
okay. Awesome. Well, thank you so
Yes,
much.
Thank you so much.
This has
Absolutely.
been
Thank you.
absolutely fascinating.
Okay.
You have a great day.
You
And
too.
yeah,
You guys have a
reach out
great
to us
weekend.
again.
Thanks.
Yeah. Thank you.
All right. Good night. Good
Night.
afternoon. Good to
Yeah.
see you.
There you go.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Hey guys, that was
Marc Hoover
Marc
from
Hoover.
Catch My Killer. An excellent podcast that focuses on cold cases from just about everywhere in the country. He interviews the victims' families, police agencies if he can. As we discussed, some news, I don't understand why some police agencies don't want to work with podcasters or TV shows or whatever, but that's a whole nother discussion.
Okay, and this one is hooked. She
I am
absolutely
hooked. I am
having fun
hooked.
with this.
Yes.
Not fun per se, but
No.
fascinated. Definitely
Yes, it
fascinated.
is fascinating. And you never know. Listen to his podcast, listen to the episodes. They're all cold cases. You may know something you don't know until you listen. So check it out. Catch My Killer. I know it's on Spotify and just about anywhere you can find podcasts. Or you can go to www.catchmykiller.com for more information. You can also donate to help keep his podcast going, keep his good work going, because you never know. His podcast could solve a murder. You never know.
There you go.
So please check it out. And
we should go ahead and just say we're out of here.
yes, I'm out of here to go watch more of his listen to more of his podcasts. So
Okay, yeah. Next time is who? Do we know?
Next time, oh God, I can't remember. I am not gonna lie to you guys. We have so many interviews lined up for January. It's insane. I think we have like 7 interviews lined up just for this month. So stay tuned. They're going to be awesome interviews with some fascinating people.
Oh yeah.
So stay tuned, come back. Have a great day. Hope you enjoyed this episode.